Caught my wife turning work trips into sex vacations. What's up, Reddit? I 36 never thought I'd be one of those guys posting here, but my life has flipped upside down, and I need to get this out. I've been married to Hannah 34 for 10 years. She's smart, ambitious, and has always been proud of her career. I love that about her. When she started getting sent on frequent business trips with her bosses, Greg 42, and Paul 39, I thought, good for her. She's earning their trust. I trusted her completely. I stayed home, worked my own job, took care of the house, and believed we were a solid team. But things started to shift. After trips, she'd come home buzzing with energy, too much energy. She'd toss digs at me in bed, saying stuff like, "You're too predictable," or, "I wish you'd be a little more adventurous." At first, I brushed it off, thought it was stress or maybe she was just trying to communicate clumsily. Then the comments got nastier. One night after we had sex, she actually said, "God, no wonder I need business trips to remind me what good feels like." She laughed like it was a joke, but it stuck in my chest like a knife. I told my sister Amanda 32 about it, and she said, "Mark, that doesn't sound right. No woman who respects her husband says something like that." I wanted to believe Hannah was just stressed, just venting. But deep down, I felt the first crack in the life I thought we'd built. I didn't know it then, but those business trips weren't about work at all. They were about Hannah finding new ways to humiliate me. The truth came out in the ugliest way possible. One Friday night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, and it was Greg, one of Hannah's bosses. He sounded drunk, slurring his words. "Hey man," he said, laughing. "You know you've got yourself one hell of a wife." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Oh, come on," Greg chuckled. "Don't play dumb. Those business trips? She's the one who started everything. You're Hannah's, creative, let's put it that way. She taught us things I didn't even know women liked. Paul and I? We're still recovering." I couldn't breathe. My ears rang, my chest tightened. I managed to choke out, "What the hell are you talking about?" Greg kept laughing. "Don't be mad, bro. She said you don't satisfy her. Said she needed real men. You should have heard her. God, she was wild." The phone slipped out of my hand. I sat there staring at the wall, trying to process what I just heard. My wife, the woman I'd trusted, defended, built a life with, had not only cheated, but initiated threesomes with both of her bosses on business trips. And worse, she'd been telling them I couldn't please her. When she came home from that trip, she looked radiant. Flushed cheeks, messy hair, like she'd been at a spa instead of a conference. She kissed me casually, tossed her bag on the couch, and said, "God, work was exhausting." I stood there, knowing the truth. Knowing that while I was home worrying about bills and laundry, she was in hotel rooms teaching her bosses how to break me without ever meeting me. And she was smiling. Like I was the joke. I didn't even wait a day. The next morning, when Hannah was making coffee in the kitchen, I put my phone on the counter and hit play. Greg's drunken voicemail spilled out into the room. "She's the one who started everything. You're Hannah's creative. She taught us things. Said you don't satisfy her." Hannah froze, mug in hand. Then slowly, she turned around, narrowed her eyes, and crossed her arms. "So now you're spying on me through my boss?" she sneered. I couldn't believe it. "Spying?" He called me. He told me everything. The trips, the threesomes, how you said I wasn't enough for you. Jesus, Hannah, how could you do this? She rolled her eyes, smirked. "Oh, grow up, Mark. It was just fun. Business and pleasure, you know? At least they make me feel alive. You've been phoning it in for years." My hands shook. "Alive? You humiliate me. You make me into some kind of joke in front of your bosses." She sipped her coffee like we were talking about the weather. "Maybe if you weren't so vanilla, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere. Do you ever think of that? Do you ever think about how boring you've become?" The bitchiness in her tone cut deeper than anything. Not an ounce of regret, not even fake tears. Just contempt. That's when it hit me, she didn't just cheat on me. She wanted me to feel small. Less of a man. And in that moment, as much as it shattered me, something else sparked deep inside. Because if Hannah thought she could break me down into nothing, she was about to learn I wasn't as weak as she believed. After that confrontation, I was wrecked. I'd sit in the bathroom at night staring at myself in the mirror, trying to recognize the man staring back. My wife had told other men I couldn't satisfy her. She'd made me a punchline in the place I was supposed to feel safest. I couldn't stop imagining it, her in those hotel rooms. The way she must have laughed, the way she must have touched them, the moans I never got from her. The images tore at me like knives. At work, I was a zombie. I went through the motions, but my head wasn't there. My boss pulled me aside once and asked if everything was okay. I just mumbled, "Rough week." He had no idea. Family noticed too. My sister Amanda came over, saw me half dead on the couch, and asked, "Mark, is Hannah cheating?" I wanted to deny it, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I broke down, something I hadn't done since I was a kid. She hugged me and said, "She's not breaking you, Mark. She's showing who she really is." But that didn't stop the spiral. I started believing her words. That maybe I was boring. Maybe I was inadequate. Maybe no matter how hard I tried, I'd never measure up. Nights were the worst, lying in bed next to her while she scrolled her phone, smirking at messages I couldn't see. I'd stare at the ceiling, feeling less than human. I thought about divorce, but every time I pictured it, shame punched me in the gut. I'd be the guy who couldn't keep his wife satisfied. The man other husbands whispered about. And yet, somewhere deep down, another feeling started to rise. Anger. Because Hannah wasn't just betraying me. She was dragging me into the mud to make herself feel bigger. And if she wanted a war, I was ready to burn it all down. I needed to know if Greg's drunken bragging was the full story or just the tip of the iceberg. So I started digging. Hannah had always been protective of her work laptop, but one night she passed out on the couch after too much wine. I took my shot. Opened it up, went straight to her downloads folder. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the damn thing. And there it was. Hotel receipts from Chicago, Miami, Dallas, all lined up with her business trips. But the kicker? Some of the invoices had 2 or 3 room service charges on nights she was supposedly exhausted from meetings. Then I found the photos. She must have forgotten to delete them. Selfies in hotel mirrors, lingerie I'd never seen, lips parted like she was posing for a damn magazine cover. In one picture, I could clearly see Greg's arm around her waist. Another had Paul's hand on her thigh while she winked at the camera. I felt like someone poured boiling water into my veins. And as if that wasn't enough, her email sealed it. Buried in her archives were messages she thought she'd hidden, her sending Greg meeting invites with hotel addresses, Paul replying with jokes like, "Can't wait for my favorite kind of staff training." This wasn't a fling. This wasn't even an affair. This was planned. Routine. My wife had turned business trips into sex vacations, and she'd been leading the charge the whole time. I sat there in the dark with her laptop glowing in my lap, my heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. The evidence was undeniable. The betrayal was complete. And for the first time since it all began, I stopped questioning myself. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It was that Hannah was never satisfied with anyone, not even herself. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Keeping it all bottled up was eating me alive, so I decided to tell my family. I went to my parents' house one Saturday. My sister Amanda was already there, and the second she saw my face, she said, "You found something, didn't you?" I didn't say a word. I just pulled out a USB stick and plugged it into Dad's old laptop. The room went dead quiet as the photos popped up. Hannah in hotel mirrors, lingerie, Greg's arm around her, Paul's hand on her thigh. Then the emails. Then the receipts. My mom gasped, covered her mouth with both hands. Dad slammed his fist on the table so hard the coffee mugs rattled. That woman disgraced you, Mark. She spat on your marriage. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but she wasn't surprised. I knew it. I knew she was tearing you down to cover what she was doing. You're not boring, Mark. You're not inadequate. She's poison. Hearing that hit me harder than I expected. Because deep down, I still felt like maybe this was my fault. Maybe Hannah strayed because I didn't measure up. But sitting there, with my family staring at undeniable proof, I realized something. It wasn't me. It was her. My mom grabbed my hand and said softly, "Son, don't let her destroy you." She's already destroyed herself. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of strength. Because Hannah thought she'd buried me in lies. But now my family knew the truth, and I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Not long after, Hannah dragged me to one of her company functions. Some fancy dinner at a downtown hotel. She insisted I go, saying, "It'll look bad if you're not there. People might start asking questions." Translation: she needed her prop husband. I almost refused, but part of me wanted to see their faces, Greg's, Paul's, and hers, all together. So I put on a suit and played along. The moment we walked in, Greg spotted us. He clapped me on the back like we were old pals, smirking as he said, "Mark! Good to see you, buddy. How's life treating you?" His hand lingered on my shoulder just long enough to feel condescending. Paul wasn't any better. He shook my hand with that fake corporate smile, then gave Hannah a look I recognized instantly, the kind of look men don't give to women they just work with. And Hannah? She was glowing, introducing me around as my amazing husband, smiling like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. The same mouth Greg had bragged about over the phone. I stood there, smiling for photos, sipping watered-down cocktails, while the three of them exchanged inside jokes and secret glances right in front of me. I was the punchline in a joke everyone else was in on. At one point, Hannah leaned in and whispered, "See? This is why I need you to hold it together. Don't embarrass me." Embarrass her? She was parading me around like a puppet while her bosses smirked at me, knowing they'd shared the same woman I'd married. That humiliation burned hotter than anything I'd ever felt. And in that moment, I swore I wouldn't just expose her. I'd make sure she never had the chance to smirk at me like that again. That night after the company dinner, I sat in the car in the parking garage while Hannah scrolled her phone in the passenger seat, humming like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just spent 3 hours parading me around while her lovers smirked over my shoulder. Something in me snapped. For weeks I'd been numb, hollow, humiliated. But sitting there, watching her bathed in the glow of her phone, smirking at some message I knew wasn't from me, all that numbness boiled into something sharp. Rage. I realized then, Hannah wasn't just cheating. She was proud of it. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd reduce me to nothing but a placeholder husband, good for appearances, good for stability, but never good enough to command respect. And that's when the anger turned into focus. I stopped thinking about what I'd lost and started thinking about what I could take from her. Her reputation. Her job. The shiny, career woman image she paraded online. I wasn't going to scream at her or beg her to love me again. No, I was going to build my case carefully, piece by piece, until I had the kind of evidence that would leave her in ashes. Because if Hannah wanted to humiliate me, she was about to learn what real humiliation felt like. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, my phone, and a notepad, mapping it all out. Dates, receipts, screenshots, recordings. A blueprint for her downfall. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel weak. I felt alive. Once I made up my mind, everything became clear. Hannah wanted me small, broken, humiliated. But if I played this right, I could flip the script, take back my dignity and bury hers in the process. The question was, where? I could confront her at home, but that would be wasted. She'd deny, gaslight, and twist it until somehow it was my fault. She thrived in the shadows, where she could control the story. No, this needed to happen under the brightest lights. And then it hit me, her company's annual awards gala. A massive event. Employees, bosses, spouses, even HR all in attendance. Hannah lived for it, always bragged about being the star of her team. It was perfect. I spent weeks preparing. Compiled the receipts, the texts, the hotel invoices. I pulled the audio recording of Greg's drunken call. Even printed out screenshots of Hannah's emails where she flirted under the guise of work meetings. I put everything in a neat, damning slideshow. Meanwhile, I played my part at home. Smiled when she wanted photos. Nodded when she bragged about her hard work. Pretended I was the same beaten-down husband she thought she controlled. Inside, I was electric. Every fake laugh was another step closer to her public execution. Because when that gala night came, Hannah wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything. The night of the gala, Hannah was in her element. New dress, hair styled to perfection, strutting around like she was the queen of the company. She tugged me along, flashing smiles for photos, introducing me to colleagues as my rock, my amazing husband. The irony nearly made me choke. Dinner wrapped, awards were handed out, and then came the team highlight reel. That's when I struck. I walked up to the AV guy running the projector. Slipped him a USB and said it was an employee recognition video Hannah had asked me to prepare. He shrugged and loaded it in. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. First slide, hotel receipts, 3 rooms, 2 nights, charges for champagne and room service. Date stamped. The room chuckled awkwardly. Hannah stiffened beside me. Second slide, screenshots of emails between Hannah and her bosses. Flirty lines about late-night strategy sessions. And can't wait to meet again, winky face. Gasps spread through the ballroom. Third slide photos. Hannah in hotel mirrors, Greg's arm around her, Paul's hand on her thigh. You could hear a pin drop. And then, the audio. Greg's drunken voice blasting through the speakers. Your Hannah's creative. She taught us things. Said you don't satisfy her. Hannah shot to her feet, screaming, Turn it off! Turn it off right now! But it was too late. The room had seen. Her coworkers stared, jaws slack. HR reps were whispering furiously. Greg and Paul's wives were storming out, faces pale with fury. And me? I stood there calm, collected, while Hannah crumbled in front of her entire world. When the lights came back up, she turned to me with venom in her eyes and hissed. You'll regret this. I leaned in just enough for her to hear and whispered. No, Hannah. You will. And then I walked out. The aftermath of that gala was like watching a skyscraper collapse in slow motion. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up. Amanda texted first. Holy shit, Mark. It's all over Facebook. People are talking. Turns out someone had recorded the entire presentation on their phone and uploaded it. Within hours, it was spreading through the company and beyond. Hannah's bosses, Greg and Paul? Their wives left them. HR launched a full investigation. Within a week, both were resigned effective immediately. Word on the grapevine was that the company's legal department was circling too, sexual misconduct, misuse of funds on those business trips. And Hannah? Her reputation was vaporized. She tried spinning the story, calling me a jealous, controlling husband who fabricated evidence. But when people saw the receipts, the emails, the audio of Greg's drunk brag, no one bought it. Her mom even called me, voice trembling, to apologize for her daughter. Mark, I don't know what to say. She told us you were cold, that you didn't care about her. But now, oh my God! My family, on the other hand, stood tall beside me. My dad clapped me on the shoulder and said, You gave her the rope, son. She tied the noose herself. Meanwhile, Hannah moved out. Not by choice, she couldn't stand the whispers, the stares. She ended up crashing at a friend's place, but even there, word followed her. People stopped answering her calls. For years, she built this shiny image of being the perfect career woman, admired and respected. In one night, it turned to dust. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel humiliated. I felt vindicated. The Monday after the gala, I walked into my lawyer's office with a thumb drive full of evidence. He didn't even let me sit before saying, "Mark, if half of what you've told me is on that drive, this will be the easiest case of my career." We filed that week. Hannah, of course, didn't take it quietly. She stormed into mediation in a black dress like she was attending a funeral, mine, I guess. She put on her best fake tears and told the judge, "Mark is abusive. He set me up to humiliate me. He's obsessed with control." My lawyer slid the evidence across the table. Emails. Photos. Receipts. The audio of Greg slurring about how she taught us everything. The judge barely looked at her after that. "Mrs. Daniels," he said dryly, "this is not a matter of misunderstanding. This is deliberate, long-term infidelity." Her face went pale. She tried to argue, to cry harder, but it was useless. The ruling came quick. I kept the house. I kept the savings. Hannah got nothing but her name on a divorce decree and the wreckage of her career. After court, she cornered me in the parking lot. Eyes wild, voice low. "You think you've won? You'll regret this, Mark. No woman will ever want you. You'll die alone." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Better alone than with you." She flinched like I'd slapped her. And that was it. 10 years of marriage ended with one sentence. I drove home, rolled down the windows, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I breathed without a weight on my chest. The cord was cut. And I was free. The first week after the divorce, the house felt like a tomb. Empty, quiet, haunted by Hannah's perfume lingering in the hallways. At night I'd catch myself expecting her car in the driveway, then remember she wasn't coming back, and thank God for that. The silence used to terrify me, but slowly, it started to feel like peace. My sister Amanda checked in constantly. She dragged me out for dinner, forced me to laugh at stupid memes, reminded me that life didn't end with Hannah. My parents called almost every night. Even my brother Nate, who's usually terrible with feelings, showed up with beer and said, "You know you're better off, right?" She was poison. At work, people noticed the difference. One coworker actually said, "Man, you look lighter." And they were right. Without Hannah's constant digs. "You're boring, you're predictable, Greg and Paul know how to have fun." The weight on my shoulders started to lift. I joined a gym, partly to kill time, partly to burn through the anger. At first I felt stupid, fumbling through machines, but after a few weeks, I started to see changes. Muscles I forgot I had. A stronger version of myself looking back in the mirror. Nights were still hard. I'd lie awake, haunted by the mental images of her in those hotel rooms. The laughter, the moans, the smug look on her face when she told me, "At least they make me feel alive." Those memories still cut deep. But every morning I woke up, went for a run, or lifted something heavy, I felt a little more alive myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't living in her shadow. I was learning to breathe again. Once the dust settled, I made a decision. I wasn't going to just survive Hannah's betrayal. I was going to rebuild myself from the ground up. I started small. Picked up hobbies I'd abandoned years ago because Hannah thought they were a waste of time. Guitar, for one. She used to roll her eyes when I played. Now I strum every night, sometimes until my fingers ache. It feels like reclaiming a piece of myself she tried to bury. Then came travel. I booked a solo trip to Colorado. Hiked mountains, stood at the edge of cliffs, and realized the world didn't end with her. Later, I went to Boston with my brother Nate for a baseball game, something Hannah would have mocked as frat boy crap. We drank too much beer, shouted ourselves hoarse, and laughed until it hurt. I reconnected with old friends too. Guys Hannah said were bad influences. Turns out, they were just good people who saw through her act. Poker nights, barbecues, beers in the garage, it all felt like pieces of the man I'd been before her crept back. And the gym? That became my therapy. Every drop of sweat was another insult burned out of me. Boring. Predictable. Not enough. With every rep, I proved to myself that I was more than her words. People started noticing. Amanda joked. You look 10 years younger. Even coworkers teased me about looking sharper. But the truth is, it wasn't just about muscles or hobbies. It was about finally building a life that was mine. A life she couldn't touch, couldn't ruin, couldn't humiliate. For the first time in years, I wasn't Mark, the husband of Hannah. I was just Mark. And I liked who that man was becoming. It's been over a year since Hannah's business trips blew my marriage to pieces. Some nights I still wake up with those images in my head, her in those hotel rooms, Greg's voice bragging that she taught them everything, her smug sneer when she said, "At least they make me feel alive." But here's the thing, those memories don't own me anymore. For months, I thought her cheating meant I wasn't enough. I let her words eat at me, convinced myself I was boring, inadequate, less of a man. But the truth? Cheating doesn't mean you weren't good enough. It means the cheater was empty enough to need constant validation. My revenge wasn't just the slideshow at the gala, though watching her crumble in front of everyone was satisfying. The real revenge was living long enough to see myself rebuild. To travel, to play guitar again, to laugh with my friends, to run farther and lift heavier than I thought I could. To look in the mirror and see a man I respected staring back. Hannah lost everything she thought made her powerful, her career, her reputation, her false image of control. And I walked away with something better, freedom. So if you're here because you've been betrayed, if you're sitting where I was, hollow, humiliated, questioning your worth, here's what I tell you. 1. Believe what you see. Don't let their lies twist your reality. 2. Gather your proof. Not to cling to, but to set yourself free. 3. Expose the truth when it counts. Darkness protects cheaters. Light destroys them. 4. Rebuild for you. Pick up the hobbies, take the trips, lift the weights. Fill your life with what makes you strong. 5. Remember, their betrayal is not your weakness. It's their emptiness. Hannah thought she could reduce me to nothing. But all she did was light the fire that made me into someone new. I'm not her victim anymore. I'm my own man. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.